The following is provided for you author, Ink Dance by Song, text, please enjoy. Preface. In the Huangmei play that has been passed down through the ages, I tried to save Li's son, marrying a princess, and fighting high officials. My later life was exposed and was named a righteous daughter by the emperor. Goodbye. Li Gongzi gave the position of champion to marry him. The ending was happy. In fact, the storytellers were wrong. For example, the emperor and Chuan are actually very young and promising, and self-satisfied. Li Gongzi is actually, when I put on the champion golden python red robe as a woman, I officially entered the court and became the first in history. The moment of a female official is also the beginning of the most complicated game. Son-in-law. Feng Sohen 001. There is a son whose last name is Li Dijing, 19 years, winter. Prince Li, Sohen is here. Are you annoyed that Sohen stayed at her cousin's house for a few days and brought these women and mothers to stimulate me? A girl lay on the eaves, staring tearfully at the young man in the courtyard, and 5 young women sitting beside him on a blind date. The young man with a crown-like face shuddered, and the whole cup of tea was poured on the woman on the opposite side. The woman screamed, and stood up with several others glaring at the woman on the eaves. Feng Sohen, it's you ugly girl again. Tell you, I, Li Chen, will never admit this marriage. With a roar of the lion, a middle-aged woman walked out of the room and looked at the woman on the eaves with her arms akimbo. Sohen sighed and thought to herself, Aunt Li, this marriage is obviously from your Feng family, Li Jiaqiang. When her family moved to Huai County, her father and Li Gongzi and his father drank alcohol. After 3 rounds of drinking, seeing her father look sad, then Uncle Li asked why. Her father told him that her mother gave birth. Girl, all the neighbors are wandering around her house, seeming to be making some ideas. This dad is a big beauty, can this daughter be ugly? Uncle Li was excited, thinking that you and other xiaomins must come to Feng's house to order a baby to kiss him. Uncle Li is the grandfather of Huaixin County. Can her father refuse? The next day, Uncle Li and Aunt Li came to her house and saw her mother, shocked as a god, saying that her father had tricked her. Although she also thinks that her own dad has cheated, no one will let you be cheated. Besides, she never thought her mother was ugly, otherwise how could her father love her so much? But the eyes are smaller, the nose is a little bit thicker, the lips are thicker, and the small pox mark on the face is a little bit. From a genetic point of view, she may not inherit her mother. Although the facts later proved that she did have that point. Saying that Sohen was recalling the past, Li Gongzi glanced at his book boy Xiaxi. Xiaxi silently took out a small bow from his arms, picked a stone on the ground, put it on the bow, and aimed at her. Sohen was shot quickly, and she planted from the wall with a sound of awe, and fell for an instant, only to see the corner of Li Gongzi's mouth smiling, bright like a spring flower, like an autumn moon. Smiling for Pomeranian, she thought she would admit it. Just she touched her head, bared her teeth and said, "It hurts, how can the eyesight of this dead boy be so powerful? Since you were 5 years old, holding on to his son's clothes, he has begun to protect the grass, and it's only strange that you have been inaccurate for 12 years. Also, you don't hurt, it's me who hurts. I'm not here, you will fall on purpose. Come down to make Li Zhaoting laugh." The boy under Sujin picked him up and put it down, saying with no expression on his face. Sohen wanted to pat the child for comfort, but her only had his chest high and could not reach his shoulders, so she gave up and said with a smile, "Cold-blooded, I will buy you candied haws to eat." "No." Cold-blooded refused almost immediately. "Why? From childhood to adulthood, every time you bought me food, you borrowed money from me, and you never paid it back. I'm your lady, how can you be so stingy? Does my father pay you less? The old fox owes me 18 years of wages. When I lose my wife, I have a subsidy, so I can save some personal self. Except for my wife, there is no good person in your Feng family." Sohen sighed, who did this kid learn from such a stingy? It hurts feelings about talking about money. Therefore, when he later became one of the crushes of the girls in the capital, and was selected as a civil servant in 6 stores along with the Ruthless, Iron Hand, and Fate, they were given a nickname, called the Four in Capital. Deming arrested, she was really puzzled. OM/A/3698550/list.html book catalog JavaScript, bookmark/A/3698550/4302921.html tips for the next chapter. You can use the keyboard shortcut to turn pages. The previous chapter. The next chapter. Use the mobile phone book to expand the SMS receiving mobile version address. Expand the download link to the computer. Expand // novel/s/list_each_up.html update today ranking free full version President Hall Traverse Pavilion Ancient Rhyme Museum Fantasy Hall Fashion Pavilion Poinsettia Museum About Us Contact Us Partners Member Registration Help Center Copyright Statement Site Map Red Sleeve All rights reserved. Do not reprint Beijing ICP Certificate 090200 without permission. Copyright 19992012. The following is provided for you author, Ink Dance by Song, text, please enjoy. Don't forget the mission. Before entering the house, Sohen glanced cold-bloodedly, with a serious tone. Are you bored after playing for so many years? Cold blood continued to Ice Cube face. Sohen glanced at him. Are you responsible for Mr. Lee being taken away, et? Responsible means marrying her and responding to her request without saying a word. Sohen laughed. In fact, he asked him to go to the young ladies to have a cup of tea, have a steamed bun, and talk to them, and remind them of the reasons why Aunt Lee has been unsuccessful in concubine Lee in recent years. Because our son Lee has the Widget's disease, what can't be done? But it doesn't matter much. As long as she and Gongza Lee will get married in the future, he will be innocent if she is pregnant with the baby. So, as the saying goes, time can prove everything. Because she didn't go home immediately after coming back from her cousin's house, she went to visit young Master Lee. She acted a little bit of filial piety. At this time, walking through the front door was nothing more than looking for training, so she pulled cold blood into the house through the back door. However, what greeted her was her father, mother, her brother, and the big girl's red smiling face. Seeing her father's laughter that spring was rippling, Sohen had a numb scalp and jumped into her mother's arms to understand her father. Daddy, the daughter who is about to marry is also thrown out of water, understand? Her father said, yes, but the girl in Hanjian took out a baggage from nowhere and handed it to her like a trick. Sohen glanced at the question mark, and her brother kindly explained, the splashed water, you can go. Mother, they want to drive me away. Sohen hugged her mother. One thing fell one thing, her father loved her mother more than his life. Jane, her mother touched her head, her eyes filled with dismay, you really want to leave this time? Sohen thought for a while and asked her father, could it be that you suddenly discovered that I was not yours? As soon as she said this, she was immediately beaten up by her mother. Dad smiled and said, goodbye, go to the top pick, and go home after Guangzhou Yeazu. When Sohen heard the black thread, her father was able to do amazing things. For example, take the dog next door to learn breaststroke and Aunt Zhang's bullfrog to learn dog climbing. Another example is her mother who learns to arrange flowers and is worried about what plant to match the chrysanthemum. He gave her a cucumber. But this time she wiped it. Dad, can you be more reliable? She pointed to her brother and said, brother go. Her father spread his hands and said, he has been learning martial arts since childhood, and you have been learning martial arts since childhood. That's right, let my brother go to the martial arts champion, and then marry a princess back. It's Wen Zhuangyuan who is happy for my father. Sohen wanted to vomit blood, but she was dragged by her brother to practice since she was a child. She was in good health. Not to mention vomiting blood, she didn't pant and blushed. She thought for a while, hugged Feng Myron's arm, and said, Daddy, the imperial examination of the imperial women in the Zhou dynasty will be exposed, but the whole family will be punished for deceiving the king. The daughter is not afraid of death, and she can't hurt her parents. Our whole family is not afraid of death, but you are afraid of your daughters. You are not afraid of the best. The biggest regret of my dad was that he failed to get the champion. You can get the champion and try to resign. Her father is still smiling. After that, her mother, her brother and Hong Rong dragged her to disguise, go to the stables to lead the horses, and stuff money and food into her baggage. Sohen wanted to cry without tears, and she was right in cold blood. Sure enough, there is no good person in her family, and none of them are normal. She decided to go back to the room to sleep, but was blocked by the cold-blooded look of her father. She then looked at him at an angle of 45.5 sorrow, which little beggar was holding me alive and asking me to take him back to Feng's house. You told me to take care of my food and I came back with you. Then I've been in charge of you for 10 years at any rate, you can't avenge you. It's not you who cares about the meal. In this way, in the 19th year of Dijing in Dazhu, Sohen was driven out of the Feng family girl by her father Feng Myron's sudden idea of Guangzhou Yeazu and went to the first prize in the examination for the first prize in the men's dress. What struck her most was that Feng Myron's servant even made perfect preparations and forged a document for her. Admission ticket. The imperial examination system of each dynasty differed from form to content. In the Great Zhou dynasty, there were 3 examinations of township, meeting, and hall, which went up from the township county to the state and provincial government, and finally the central government. The admission ticket is a proof of identity. It is uniformly prepared by the government. It has a special pattern on it, with the name of the candidate's hometown, the name of the township examination, etc., and the official seal is stamped on the information. In other words, you must get a place in the township test before you can participate in the test. Of course, having money can make ghosts grind, and official seals are nothing more than that. Therefore, although this to Sohen said it was a fake, the certificate was not a fake certificate, but a true certificate that was paid for. However, no matter how tricky the provincial examinations may be, the emperor will give you some real chapters in the last hall examination. Go back to the admission ticket. Sohen sighed, thinking that Feng Myron could only do this step, but she really underestimated him. He prepared a number of documents for her and let her choose. Wu Jilong, Lu Kaiwei, Lin Yuhao. She saw these names very domineering, and she had a foreboding that they would be popular in the future, and she really didn't dare to use them indiscriminately. Upon seeing this, Feng Myron took out a bunch of documents, such as Li Shichen, Li Shimin, Li Guang, a bunch of Li surnames. She knew her father wanted to make fun of herself, but still agreed to choose one. The name above is Li Huizhu. This name may have thousands of meanings, but in her opinion, it just means Li Zhaoting, you will miss Feng Sohen. Wishing in my name is so simple. Unexpectedly, afterwards, after she became an official, she would strictly fight fakes. Also received a proud student Xiao Zhou. The child was better than blue. The back wave of the Yangtze River pushed the front wave and almost didn't tell her to die on the beach. The first is just to reveal some powerful gossips, such as the magical makeup techniques of a certain lady, who looks terrible after removing her makeup, for example, the academic research results of a certain Wuhao, saying that you are studying martial arts, not just a sports special enrollment. How can you spread it out? Then I wrote a fluent article. Later, she actually hit her on the head, saying that she cheated in the imperial examination, so she was ghostwriting. She was so angry that she pulled up his collar and asked, "How do you prove that you did not cheat in the examination for recruiting civil servants in the Hanlin Academy?" The child actually asked slowly, "If I proved that I was innocent, you would admit that you cheated." She was completely defeated. This matter was full of ups and downs in the city, and all scholars were at risk for a while. Since ancient times, literati have been pitiful and light-hearted, and this has also given birth to an advantage. Everyone stands up and walks a lot, and no longer appreciates themselves alone. There must be personal evidence for writing poems and writing. What I originally wrote at home has also moved to the restaurant floor, which has driven the development of economic consumption to some extent. This incident later led to a number of fraudulent cases of food materials and furniture. The sauced pork became sauced beef, the sauced beef became sauced mutton, and the sauced mutton became sauced tiger meat. The furniture advertised as red sandalwood and rosewood was made of artificial wood. Angrily, she ate green vegetables for 1 month in a row, except for the severe crackdown. She switched to the thinnest, worst, and cheapest plates for furniture, and would never let any unscrupulous merchant earn her hard-earned money. As a result, people rushed to eulogize that she was a clean official, and later, the emperor was furious and issued a new law to severely punish related matters. The emperor advocates defending the interests of the people, vigorously safeguarding the law, on duty, the rule of a country. The beginning of the cure is not to put an end to the leisurely mouth, but to truly put the people first. This incident has given officials, businessmen, and the people a warning, and it is not all bad. However, it is not a good thing to over-exaggerate if you catch the wind. Xiao Zhou's cheating father made people panic. The emperor finally blamed her and fined her for 3 months. She had to go to other colleagues every day to eat food, and when they saw her, they immediately closed the door and released the dog. Of course, those are things for later. Based on each poignant story that the scholar who went to Beijing to take the exam brought a book boy, Suhen was also equipped with a bottle of oil, cold-blooded by her father. What she wanted was red silk, but the red silk didn't do it, saying that the road was hard. Suhen expressed her understanding that she was not easy to be a young lady these days. Before leaving, she thought for a while and wrote a threatening letter to Li Gongzi, telling him that if he dares to take a concubine, she would make him look good, and she asked her brother to spread the secret of Li Gongzi's illness throughout the county. OM/A/3698504289051.html previous chapter/A/369850/list.html book catalog JavaScript bookmark/A/369850/4307009.html tips for the next chapter. You can use the keyboard shortcut to turn pages. The previous chapter. The next chapter. Use the mobile phone book to expand the SMS receiving mobile version address. Expand the download link to the computer. Expand /novel/s/list_each_up.html update today ranking free full version President Hall Traverse Pavilion Ancient Rhyme Museum Fantasy Hall Fashion Pavilion Poinsettia Museum About Us Contact Us Partners Member Registration Help Center Copyright Statement Site Map Red Sleeve All rights reserved. Do not reprint Beijing ICP Certificate 090200 without permission. Copyright 19992012. The following is a provide you the text, please enjoy. The two tables were very close, and Su Jin heard a vaguely startled statement from an entourage that the purse must have been pulled down on the way. Xiao Er was originally a respectful form of my uncle. Hearing this, he immediately changed to your uncle's disdain, and his eyes swept a few burly patrons. The shop suddenly quieted down, and it looked lively. This is to save money for cooking. In addition, we need a room to go to. At this time, the white-clothed young man reached out and took the hosta on his head and handed it to Xiao Er. Suhen's heart moved, and the hairpin was as snow-like, with a simple texture, and it was not only a fine product, it must be top quality. Xiao Er's eyes gleamed, and when he looked at the shopkeeper, the latter also blared. Seeing that the shopkeeper was about to pick it up, the man in the blue robe stopped. "Seventh brother, this is something that my father gave you. You must never give it," he said with a low cough, and everyone shuddered. The old man immediately asked nervously if the injury had occurred. He just said that it's okay. He took out something from his arms and said, "Treasurer, you take this thing to the largest town in town. The pawn shop is pawned, save the bills, and redeem it next day." The people under his staff changed their faces when they saw the thing, but the shopkeeper sneered, "Uncle, you want to buy my meals with a broken stone? His words fell silent, and the two young attendants stood up abruptly, their eyes cold. The shopkeeper was frightened and angry. With a wave of his hand, the crowd was about to the hairpin of the white-clothed youth. These people looked like scholars, but I was afraid they were not the opponents of these 7 or 8 tall men. The rest of the people talked about it, not caring about the overlord, but rather worried about the situation of the two sons. Suhen thinks that people who grow beautifully take advantage of wherever they are. Wait, I will settle this account for these princes. Suddenly, the shopkeeper was taken aback, and people immediately looked towards Suhen and cold-blooded. It was Suhen who spoke just now. For a long time, the man in the blue robe who hadn't looked at her straightly looked at her for a long time, with a smile on his lips, as if to thank him. But his eyes have always been as pale as water. As soon as Suhen changed his impression, this person looked gentle and limited in appearance. If the young man in white is not simple, he has no depth. Following the instructions of the man in the blue robe, the old man stepped forward and handed her the stone. She glanced at the grey stone in his palm, and smiled. A beauty is like a jade, and a gentleman is so beautiful. No, please give this thing back to your son. Although male style was not popular in the Great Zhou dynasty, it was not without it. Someone in the hall gasped immediately, and the two attendants were immediately angry. Their master was molested and provoked, or by an ugly man. A cold-blooded glance at Suhen, ready to fight at any time, but the blue-robed man told the two to retreat, looked at her indifferently and said, "So, thank you son." The young man in white looked at the stone, then glanced at her again, and chuckled lightly, not knowing what he was laughing at. The blue-robed man asked the old man to ask for the name of Suhen's birthplace, only that he would be paid heavily in the future. Suhen smiled and said, "Beauty, I waited for you in room X and ran away cold-blooded. It was also because of her running fast, otherwise she would have been hit by the chair that the two attendants fell over." Back to the guest room, I looked at her coldly. "What are you thinking about? Paying for someone for free is not your style." Suhen was enthusiastic and retorted, "I'm a good person, and the blue-robed man gave me the gift, it's not free." Cold-blooded just the broken stone. Do you think the hosta is valuable? Nonsense, they won't give you a hosta. The stone is 10 times more valuable than the hosta. He said something cold-blooded to make a joke, and then he started hitting the floor and ignored her. There is a saying that the stone of his mountain can be used to attack jade. Seeing the cold-blooded raised eyebrows proudly, Suhen was not annoyed, and explained with a smile. Hearing her voice seriously, cold-blooded, it didn't seem to be a joke, and was slightly startled. Suhen understood that for many years of friendship, he knew when she was joking and when she was not, so he continued, "This is a superb rough jade, it's just unpolished, it's still APU. People often say that it's pure jade. That's it." After listening cold-blooded, his eyebrows frowned for a while. Fang said, "It's no wonder that the white-clothed man just kept laughing, because he laughed at you not knowing treasure." OM/A/36985/4307009.html previous chapter /A/36985/list.html book catalog JavaScript bookmark /A/36985/4310961.html tips for the next chapter. You can use the keyboard shortcut to turn pages. The previous chapter. The next chapter. Use the mobile phone book to expand the SMS receiving mobile version address. Expand the download link to the computer. Expand /////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////// HTML update today. Ranking free full version. President Hall Traverse Pavilion, Ancient Rhyme Museum, Fantasy Hall, Fashion Pavilion, Poinsettia Museum. About us. Contact us. Partners. Member Registration Help Center. Copyright Statement. Site map. Red sleeve. All rights reserved. Do not reprint. Beijing ICP Certificate 090200 without permission. Copyright 19992012. The following is provided for you. Author, Ink Dance by Song. Text, please enjoy. Sojin shrugged, it didn't matter. But in the cold-blooded eyes, a suspicion arose, will you make a loss-making business? She spread her hands on the back of her head, smiled slightly, and said nothing. Both are precious and beloved things, the blue-robed man took his own to his seventh brother, this kind of behavior is to her taste. A gentleman does not take advantage of others, she has her own worthless things. Some knight fell outside the window, cold-blooded fighting to make a good floor, said, I'll go out to buy you some snacks and eat on the road tomorrow. Suhen glared at him, what do I mean by bribing for food? Sure enough, cold-blooded said, tomorrow you and I will continue to walk the trail. He said that he was going out, Sojin covered her belly and groaned low. Cold-blooded, he turned his head immediately, then raised his eyebrows, don't cheat me, I'm still full of energy. Suhen shook her head, saying that she was afraid that Yuexin came. He didn't need to shy away from cold blood. He had been in her house for many years. He knew that she was in pain when the letter came. He frowned and he wanted to help her lie down. Suhen shook her head and stopped. She read more books freely, understood some medical theory, and wrote Zhang Yaofang to let Lang Shui pick up the medicine for her. Cold-blooded aside, he took the prescription and went out immediately. He did things so quickly that he asked Xiao Er to boil up the medicine and deliver it to her, but in a blink of an eye. Seeing the dark medicine and smelling the bitterness coming, Suhen just refused to touch her. She was so angry that she wanted to beat her up. He wrinkled and picked a plum from the newly bought candied fruit and handed it to him. To her lips, you must take medicine after this. Suhen said, you eat with me, and I will eat. Lang Shui's face turned black this time, but in the end he took 2 sips with a bowl, and then stared at her fiercely, it's your turn. Suhen got up from the bed quickly. The cold-blooded expression changed, his eyebrows sharpened, and he threw the bowl, followed by a tremor, and slammed onto the bed. This is not a remedy, you, calculate me. He stared at her closely, his voice deep and angry. Suhen stood by the bed, nodded, and said every word, when I was a kid, I lied to you that a mosquito bit me, you would quietly stay in my room at night and stay up all night to repel mosquitoes for me. Why are you willing to take me along the forest road? You just said to buy snacks, but you actually want to take the opportunity to go out to inquire about the news, right? My father is full of bad ideas. No one has ever known his thoughts and calculations, so I pretended to be tested. It's not that he can't do things like the champion, but he doesn't rule out other reasons, such as asylum. She took a deep look at the cold-blooded person who was struggling to stand up, knowing that the guesses that had been hidden in her heart for several days might come true. She sank and walked out of the guest room quickly. Cold blood deliberately concealed her from her, and with his temperament, even if he killed him, it was impossible to ask anything from him. This is also the reason why she has never asked him, and now she does not have to ask him. In the past, once questioned, he vowed to stun him, and it was impossible to attack. Moreover, his martial arts is high, even if he attacks, he may not be successful. She waited for a few days, asking him to be unguarded and trick him into eating the hemp boiling soup she personally grabbed. She stood in the courtyard with her hands clasped, and for the first time in her life, she felt distressed. There may be something wrong with the Feng family. Her father tried to drive her out to avoid disaster, God bless, I only hope she can make it in time. As she rushed towards the stables, a shadow jumped from the eaves with a long sword in her hand, and came towards her, and a strong air also penetrated into all her senses. OM/A/36985/4307742.html previous chapter/A/36985/list.html book catalog JavaScript bookmark/A/36985/4316035.html tips for the next chapter. You can use the keyboard shortcut to turn pages, the previous chapter. The next chapter, use the mobile phone book to expand the SMS receiving mobile version address, expand the download link to the computer, expand close /novel/s/list_each_up.html. update today ranking free full version President Hall Traverse Pavilion, Ancient Rhyme Museum, Fantasy Hall, Fashion Pavilion, Poinsettia Museum, About Us, Contact Us, Partners, Member Registration Help Center, Copyright Statement, Site Map, Red Sleeve, All Rights Reserved, Do Not Reprint, Beijing ICP Certificate 090200 without permission, Copyright 19992012. The following is provided for you, author, Ink Dance by Song, text, please enjoy. It seemed that people fell towards her, and the sword was sent straight to her. Suhen was frightened in a cold sweat. Fortunately, he slammed back and supported her body with the tip of the sword. She was shocked just now. Is it the man in the blue shirt that you met just now? The cold blood was right, he was really hurt, a piece of purple oozes from his clothes, staining his chest. The stars above the two of them were shining, but his face was as white as a paper cicada, and there was a ray of red on his partial lips, which actually washed away countless romantic colors. Suhen suddenly felt that this person's appearance was somewhat similar to Li Gongzi, and as good-looking as Li Gongzi. However, there was a dark in his eyes, and his brows were 10 times deeper than what he had seen before. He seems to be in his 20s, and this kind of composure far beyond his age gives people a sense of oppression. No one has ever given her this feeling. With a few swishes, several dark shadows pounced down from the eaves. These people covered their faces, their hands were dreadful, and they were chilling. The undisguised killing intent in her eyes made her Fang's heart raise her voice again. I. The man in the blue shirt seemed to have difficulty supporting him at this time, and fell sharply towards her. Sojin's first reaction was, jump away, run for her life, herself. The man squinted slightly and glanced at her with a smile. He seemed to have seen through her thoughts and suddenly reached out and squeezed her hand. Suhen greeted the 18th generation of his ancestor in her heart. He was seriously injured, and she might not be able to break away. Who is he, what happened, and he was hunted down in the middle of the night. However, the situation did not allow her to think too much, and several long swords stabbed at the two fiercely. Suhen cursed, snatching the man's sword, and blocking the assassin's stab in his belly. And this person was also extremely tough, and his hands were shot on the other two swords, swinging the sword away. She had a faint thought, if he was not injured, these people might not be his opponents. The man could no longer support his luck and fell to the ground. He still has someone to protect here. This young man has excellent skills. To kill him, he must first kill this young man. The black-clothed man who fought her gave a cold voice, and the remaining two nodded, their eyes were sharp, and they all stabbed her. Suhen calls her mother, she has nothing to do with this person, and she is not good at martial arts, and she is not even good at martial arts, but the person who teaches martial arts is very good. Although she has only learned 2 ways to defend herself, she also has a good sense. However, only a few tricks. She cursed the underground man not to die. Nima so happened to fall behind Lao Tzu and let Lao Tzu block the sword? Nima deliberately, shit. She can't see anyone dying, but she doesn't want to be killed. However, in a moment of life and death, she can plan to get away. In the blink of an eye, 3 swords have been handed to her chest. There was a sound of stabs. The cold blood came out at some point, and glanced at her coldly, already fighting with the killer. Large swaths of blood leaked from his left arm. He is the wound of self-slaughter? Use pain to resist the effects of anesthetics? Suhen felt a pain. She didn't call for help, nor did she escape to the guest room, just because she never wanted to get cold blood, but now. Sword flowers were splashing, the cold-blooded anesthetic was not passed, she was forced to support it, and soon fell to the wind. She was too anxious, so she wanted to step forward, just when one of the men in black pierced the cold-blooded shoulder with a sword on the ground. The blue-shirted man suddenly grabbed her sword with his hand, raised his hand and threw it, knocking out the fatal one that another black-clothed man was going to the cold-blooded chest and abdomen. The other party was shocked. At this time, she saw another flower. Light and shadow flashed on the eaves, several daggers broke through the air, and all the men in black were nailed and fell to the ground. Master! Several figures jumped down, gathered around the man in the blue shirt, and watched his injuries nervously. In addition to a few people she saw during the day, Sohan found that there was an old man and a young man. The old man has a very majestic face, and the young man is also a good face, with bright teeth and bright eyes, and full of spirit. He glanced at the man in the blue shirt quickly, and after confirming that he was not in serious trouble, he joined everyone's eyes and looked at her with a little surprise, and said, "You saved my brother." Seeing the cold blood leaping towards her, Sohan couldn't stop the coldness in her heart. Perhaps her eyes were too cold, and everyone was even more surprised. The young man said angrily, "Hey, ugly boy, I want to ask you something." It was too late to seeking help to the man in blue shirt. Her body was numb, and the acupuncture points had been hit by cold blood. When her consciousness disappeared, she could only hear the man in blue shirt say faintly, "Thank you both for saving one another. If you have something important, don't pass it. Our man is the nephew of the general protector of the country, Murong Jinghao, and the two can go to Murong Mansion in Shangjing to ask for any rewards." After a long time, Sohan often wondered if she had broken away from this person that night, would the ending be completely different? OM/A/3698550/4310961.SHTML Previous chapter/A/3698550/list.SHTML Book Catalog JavaScript bookmark/A/3698550/4326064.html Tips for the next chapter. You can use the keyboard shortcut to turn pages. The previous chapter. The next chapter. Use the mobile phone book to expand the SMS receiving mobile version address. Expand the download link to the computer. Expand // novel/s/list_each_up.html Update today ranking free full version President Hall Traverse Pavilion Ancient Rhyme Museum Fantasy Hall Fashion Pavilion Poinsettia Museum About Us Contact Us Partners Member Registration Help Center Copyright Statement Site Map Red Sleeve All rights reserved. Do not reprint Beijing ICP Certificate 090200 without permission. Copyright 19992012. The following is provided for you. Author, Ink Dance by Song. Text, please enjoy. When Sohan woke up, the men in the blue shirts were no longer there, and the assassination at night was like a dream. Standing beside the bed in cold blood, watching her quietly. She had known each other in cold blood for 10 years and had never seen him look like this. The bloodshot eyes were deep, and there was a trace of sorrow. Seeing her waking up, he tried to lift her up, but she broke free abruptly, staring at him. "It's too late, right? Tell me, what happened to my house?" Cold-blooded closed her eyes, regardless of her fight, forced her up. "I will take you." Sojin was startled. "Past? Have they returned to Hawaii County? This is no longer the inn where they lived before. It was still early outside, and the light was early. This is not Hawaii County. Along the way, there are many shops for the common people. It is more prosperous than Hawaii County, and it must be a higher-level state capital." She asked Lang Shui where this is. Cold Blood said, "You have slept for 5 days, this is Kyangrong County." Her heart kept sinking. She didn't ask him again, she didn't know why, and suddenly she didn't want to ask again. At the market, Cold-Blooded stopped. Something must have happened here. People actually withdrew their business and rushed towards the city gate. She looked at Cold-Blooded but slowly turned her face away, and whispered softly, "Jane, what you want to know is over there, you go take a look, take a look." It was already winter, and the wind was biting, and there was a rumbling in the ears. The weather today is not good, the sky is dark and hazy, and a bitter cold seems to come at any time. She abruptly threw away her cold-blooded hand and sank into the crowd. There, dozens of layers of people, Huan piles upon each other, their voices are dense. You said that the new emperor was enthroned, but is there a good thing to do? Who knows? I heard that this grandfather was indifferent in joy and anger, but his political achievements as a prince were quite extraordinary. How dare you discuss such things in public? A few scholar-like men walked past her, discussing in high spirits, and then silenced for a while. Suhen could only hear someone lower her voice and ask, "What's the matter about Huai County?" Huai County? She was slightly shocked, anxious, and violent several times, but she could not squeeze into the wall. The waist tightened, and the familiar breath came suddenly, only to hear bursts of exclamation from the crowd, and the person holding her had already performed light work to cross the crowd and put her to the forefront. Suhen finally knew what people were looking at. 2 imperial lists are posted in front of the city gate. One of them wrote a lot of rhetoric, which summed it up as, Wang Xiat, Xinjun ascended the throne. The other one was written, Feng Shaoqing in Huai County, Chog's Uniang County, is the old party of the king of Jin, and all 4 members of his family have been killed. The corpse was exposed at the gate of Huai County for 3 days, as an example. Anyone who causes trouble, once found, should be severely punished with this 100 times, and harm the 9 races. King Jin, the emperor. No, the elder brother of Emperor Xian launched a rebellion many years ago and was given death by Emperor Xian. And Feng Shaoqing is exactly the name of her father. OM/A/36985/4316035.html previous chapter/A/36985/list.html book catalog JavaScript bookmark/A/36985/4333102.html tips for the next chapter. You can use the keyboard shortcut to turn pages. The previous chapter. The next chapter. Use the mobile phone book to expand the SMS receiving mobile version address. Expand the download link to the computer. Expand /novel/s/list_each_up.html update today ranking free full version President Hall Traverse Pavilion Ancient Rhyme Museum Fantasy Hall Fashion Pavilion Poinsettia Museum About Us Contact Us Partners Member Registration Help Center Copyright Statement Site Map Red Sleeve All rights reserved. Do not reprint Beijing ICP Certificate 090200 without permission. Copyright 19992012. The following is provided for you. Author, Ink Dance by Song, text, please enjoy. Suhen forgot how she got out of the crowd, she only remembered the cold-blooded conversation between herself and the crowd. She asked him, "My father only arranged for me to escape? Are the other corpses fake?" Cold-blooded replied, "The old fox didn't know what method was used to demand 2 lives from the prisoner. He said that he must be dead. Why not my mother? With my brother, my father loves my mother the most, my brother is Feng's son's direct line. The madam said that she wanted to accompany your father. Hong Wang would like to do it for you, and your brother would not let me do it for him. The person who said that the murderer would not let the 2 children of the Feng family go. He fled with you. It will only increase your danger. Zhener, they all love you the most. You are the person they consider first, so you have to live anyway. Both parents and eldest brother died, Hong Wang died for her." Suhen's cold-blooded words turned chaotically in her mind, and then she found her consciousness, and she was brought back to the inn in cold blood. She pulled out the sword on her cold-blooded waist and pointed it coldly at him. "Jane!" As if unable to see the dazzling sword tip, cold-blooded walking towards her step by step, her brows were determined and hateful. "You are not allowed to call my name." She stared at him hatefully, and shouted, "I can rush back, it's you, it's you. Get out. Otherwise, I will kill you. Your Feng family still owes me many years of wages, and I will not leave." The cold-blooded eyes were red, but the voice was calm, and every word was as cold as usual, just like an oath. She touched it in her arms without a word, but saw that Cold Blood took something from her waist and lifted it slowly. "That is her purse." He let out a dumb laugh, and slowly said, "You are now penniless, or you kill me, otherwise, I will follow you forever." She gritted her teeth and stabbed her backhand with a sword against his neck. He was still motionless, not even trembling, but looked at her deeply. Suhen smiled bitterly, "No matter how painful and angry, but she can really get rid of this hand?" To drive him away, how many deliberately did not want him to die? She, the true young lady, has not yet taken the law. Once found out, it is a crime of murder. How can he be spared? It was just that she was able to hold her palm with hatred. At this moment, she could no longer hold it, and she fell to the ground with a black face. Before the farewell, everyone's voices and smiles seemed to be still in their ears. "Feng Myron, how much effort would it take for you to perform a goodbye like an on-stage opera?" As if the curtain fell, they could talk and laugh again. As if they never left. Cold-blooded is right, none of them. Feng Jiaguo is normal, even her girl Hong Kong. She is a little orphan. Her family has only raised her for more than 10 years. She has only played with her for more than 10 years, but she is willing to die for her. Why kill them? King Jin's old party? Since she remembered, Dad was the master of the county, running a small academy and keeping discipline. The King of Jin failed to complete the disaster, his wife, children, and servants in the mansion, all of whom were all beheaded. Even in the history that she didn't know, her father was the old party of the King of Jin, but since then, she was hidden in the wild and settled in the people, and everything in the past has long since become a cloud. His words and deeds convinced her that he did not have a rebellious heart. Why did he mention old things again? Because of a suspicion, and why he refused to let her Feng family make a living. When she was carried into her arms by the cold-blooded face, Suhen trembled and the pain was everywhere, and she couldn't cry. She gritted her teeth and exhausted her last bit of strength and said, "Cold blood, check out, if you insist follow me and protect me to Beijing." Cold-blooded, what do you want to do? Check the champion. OM/A/36985/4326064.html previous chapter/A/36985/list.html book catalog JavaScript bookmark/A/36985/4341032.html tips for the next chapter. You can use the keyboard shortcut to turn pages. The previous chapter. The next chapter. Use the mobile phone book to expand the SMS receiving mobile version address. Expand the download link to the computer. Expand /novel/s/list_each_up.html update today ranking free full version President Hall Traverse Pavilion Ancient Rhyme Museum Fantasy Hall Fashion Pavilion Poinsettia Museum About Us Contact Us Partners Member Registration Help Center Copyright Statement Site Map Red Sleeve All rights reserved. Do not reprint Beijing ICP Certificate 090200 without permission. Copyright 19992012. Are you crazy? You know that it was just the old fox's trick to deceive you. The identity on the admission ticket was prepared for you by him, and he has also explained that this matter must not be hidden from you. After you learn the truth, I immediately left the prosperous place to hide from the world. He said, with your wit, as long as you have enough time to avoid it, you will be able to protect yourself in the future. Cold-blooded squeezed her shoulders, and his eyes lighted. Become cold and fierce. She smiled and said slowly, Cold-blooded, I ask you, who issued this killing order? Do you know? The first emperor or the new emperor? The cold-blooded face congealed, frowned for a long time, and shook his head. She replied, if it is the first emperor, then we still have a bit of life. If it is the new emperor, just imagine what a big event it is to become the throne, but he still allocates energy to order my Feng family to be culled. Even so, the Feng family is both you and me. Can someone else's corpse really conceal it? If the wind leaks, this world is not a king, can we spend our lives in hiding like mice? You know my temperament, if I lose my freedom, I would rather die. Cold blood tightened the corners of his mouth, and lowered his eyes slightly. What's more, I can't help but report this hatred. I have to figure out why the Feng family was destroyed. If it is wronged, I must seek justice for the Feng family. If it is really what the new emperor did, what can you do? Can you kill the emperor? Lang Shui suddenly raised his head and asked sharply. Become his most trusted courtier, and then kill him. Do you believe it or don't believe it? Hearing her low laughter with cold blood, her face changed a lot, and she grabbed the long sword that she was holding upside down in her palm. One of Suhen's palms had already been cut to flesh. Only in this way could the pain in her heart be relieved. Everyone is dead, she is only cold-blooded. She wants to protect him, she wants revenge, she can't just fall down like this. Only severe pain can keep one awake. The light in the cold-blooded eyes changed rapidly, and his breathing became heavy. He gritted his teeth and stared at her, and finally nodded, I promise you that you will go to Beijing, even if I die, I will protect you. However, you have to promise me not to become unscrupulous because of revenge. The old fox I don't want to see you like this. Play hard? Dad, mother, eldest brother, and the red silk are all gone. What's the deal with her even if she becomes a traitor? Suhen thought blankly, and fainted in his cold-blooded arms. The first snow since the beginning of winter fell between the heaven and the earth, and the whole world is full of silver and white. Suhen also had her first serious illness since she was born, and she almost couldn't survive the first snowfall. She was so shocked that she secretly caught several doctors to see her. The doctors said that she was too ill, and she was incurable. She vomited after taking the medicine. She had the same dream every night, dreaming that she broke away from the man in the blue shirt, escaped the cold blood smoothly, returned to Hawaii County, and died with her parents and brother. If he could be a little bit cruel at the time, and get on the carriage, how could the cold blood of the narcotics catch up with her? She hated herself so much and hated that person. Hearing cold-blooded words, the man left no more words and left. She laughed as soon as she heard it. She didn't expect him to return anything. Her heart is awake, but her body is violent. Later, when she woke up in the middle of the night, she saw cold-blooded standing by the bed guarding with a sword, her clear eyes faintly shining with water. She was so embarrassed that she struggled to take the medicine, vomited, and then ate again before saving herself. Killed himself. After half a month, her body finally recovered, but the root cause of the disease also fell. She knew in her heart that the two of them set off to go to Beijing to hide their cold blood. On the way, she asked cold-blooded the mystery of the Feng family's case. Cold-blooded, her father never mentioned a word to him. When he asked in time, her father looked complicated and did not answer. Who was daddy before he lived in Hawaii County? Is it the old party of King Jin? Did the emperor kill the Feng family for this reason? Who made the killing order? Will it be the new emperor? What method did daddy use to claim 2 lives from the murderer? Who is this murderer? Is the Li Gongzi family implicated? Suhen decided to follow the original plan. After arriving in Beijing, she still looked for Fu Jingshu. Perhaps he could find out the secret half of the Feng family's murder case. Qiangsu is so huge that it takes several days to leave the country. That night, the two found an inn to stay. Suhen deliberately chose a big inn called Jiti to stay. The imperial examinations are held every 3 years, and there are countless inns and post houses in the world. For hundreds of years, many scholars have gone to the examinations, and they have been handed down to the world. As the name suggests, this Jiti Inn must be a place where scholar candidates gather and stay. Not only is she going to take the imperial examination, she must be close to these people, not only to detect the strength of the other party, but also to explore the situation of the various forces in the capital, and choose the self-interested. Without a backing, even if it stands out, it is impossible to get out. Fu Jing's official position is not big, and she can't rely on too much, and for fear of harming him in the future, she definitely can't harm daddy's friend. Finally, she hopes to find out about Li Gongzi. For safety, Lang Shui still stayed in the same room with her, not avoiding men and women. As she hit the floor in cold blood, Suhen heard the voice in the courtyard, and she opened the door and went out. I saw more than a dozen scholars gathered at the stone table in the courtyard, standing or sitting on the ground. Everyone talked about the examination questions of the past years and the palace examinations at random, and slowly talked about the great figures of the Korean government. The brothers who made good friends with the new Emperor Liana Yu, 7 Princes Lianjia, the 9 Princes Lian Qin, Taishi Wei Chenjui, the left is Yan Dan, the right is different, the soldier and horse General Chao Huang, the Queen Mother's nephew Xiao Ao Ho Huo Chang'an, General Protector Murong Jinghao, 6 Shangshu. Below 1 person, above 10,000 people. Which one of these people is not self-contained, and which one does not hold authority? When she heard Murong Jinghao's name, she was shocked. The man in the blue shirt once said that he was General Murong's nephew, and suddenly one of them was surprised. "Hey, brother Zhaoting, why are you here too?" Another person asked, "Here is Li Gongzi of Huai County." Li's Hixian was dismissed and investigated. Li Gongzi is not in Huai County, and the government interrogated him. "If there is something to ask about, do you have to chase here?" Someone laughed, and his tone was full of ridicule and ridicule. Prince Li was known as a child prodigy in the past. He acts differently from others. He doesn't participate in poetry and book meetings on weekdays. He is afraid that he will go out of fashion. Even if he is in trouble, he will be a personal character. Afterwards, the person who was talking was tall and handsome, but he deliberately stirred up a flirty touch between his eyebrows, and his speech was stabbed. This person's name is called Si Lanfan, who is the son of Kiang's his Hu. He is also very famous among the neighboring state capitals, not under Li Zhaoting. It's just that Li Zhaoting stays hidden and is said to be even better. Si Lanfan's thoughts can be imagined. Almost all the rest of the audience joined the meeting. After all, Li Zhaoting was affected by her family affairs, and Suhen felt hurt and angry. Li Zhaoting led Xiao Si to stand at the courtyard gate, and his eyes dropped. Slight lithe corners of his mouth were clearly raised when he entered the door, as if he was reminiscing about Huang Yu. He was introverted and calm since he was a child. He read 4 books and the 5 classics at the age of 3 or 4. He exported poems at the age of 5 or 6. He was exquisite in both piano, chess, calligraphy, and painting. It's just that he is too lonely and never participated in any gatherings of literati. In the past, most of his classmates went to his home to visit him, so he felt proud of his reputation. Family matters seldom make decisions, and only his parents make decisions, such as concubines, blind dates. My elder brother often said that he is smart and beautiful, but he has no character. She knew that he just didn't like these vulgarities. He is good, she knows it. At the age of 10, she was playing outside and fell into the lotus pond. When a group of young men and women were crying, fearful or hesitant to move forward, or moving rescue soldiers, he was the only one who went into the water to rescue her regardless of the cold winter and the 12th lunar month. Since then, the disease of osteitis has fallen, but in severe winter, there will be pain. Her brother said that she had never seen a clambering man and knew nothing about iron bones, but for her, Li Zhaoting was already a star in the sky. His temperament is too weak. For many years, she has made his life go away. I only hope that he can remember her well and slowly fall in love with her. These people have envy, jealousy, hatred, and evil towards him. How can they not take advantage of this to suppress him now? Young Master Li is only tired of the Feng family. Once it is found out, the official family will return the Li family innocence. How can we get acquainted with each other? At this time, Song Yang, the young man who first discovered Li Zhaoting's entry, and the other two students couldn't help but say a few words of defense. Si Lanfan smiled and said, "It's an acquaintance, and this government is wanted, and it's all together." Song Yang and others were shocked for a while, and were unable to answer the conversation. She wanted to rush out and beat Si Lanfan and the 7 or 8 scholars beside him violently, but she could only grit her teeth and stand in the shadow of the pillar. When they met and didn't recognize each other, she and him were afraid of strangers. The little four protector was eager, and he wanted to step forward as soon as he made a fist. Li Zhaoting reached out to stop him, and raised his head in a low voice, "You are worried, Zhaoting is ashamed. However, in the government, you don't need to worry about Zhaoting. If the official is caught, Zhaoting will explain to him. The purpose of this trip, I think it should be safe." Everyone was startled. Song Yang was suspicious, and asked, "Dare to ask brother Zhaoting who is here in Kiangsu? It's just passing by here. Chuan Xiang rode to let me go to Beijing." Everyone was shocked when he said this. A scholar tremblingly asked, "Chuan. The following is provided for you author, ink dance by song, text, please enjoy." Song Yang lifted up the fourth. Li Zhaoting almost immediately leaned over and picked up the bag that the fourth had fallen from the snow. A scroll of painting was inserted diagonally into the bag. He quickly pulled out the scroll to see if it was crushed. Squinted to look at Si Lanfan's back. Many scholars were divided into two groups. Some left with Si Lanfan and others stayed behind. They all smiled and said, "If you really admire Li Gong's literary talent, it is better to go to Beijing all the time, and you can also consult on the way." Li Zhaoting heard this and said to Song Yang, "Brother Song went to the inn and asked Xiao Er how many pots of wine to warm up. Wouldn't it be better for Zhaoting to go over and talk with you brothers Bingju night?" Those people were overjoyed and immediately pulled Song Yang out of the backyard. Suhen suddenly stopped. The son of a Ninepin county official, even if he is famous, but still thousands of miles away in the country, how can he be different from Chuan? Just now, he glanced at Si Lanfan, and he felt a sharp coldness. She hid her mother's fetus and knew him. How could this kind of breath appear on this gentle man? No wonder half of the people who followed Si Lanfan also came to cling. From the discussion just now, it can be known that when Si Lanfan goes to Beijing, he must worship the 7th Prince Lianjia. Si Lanfan's father had an outstanding political performance. A few years ago, Lianji, who was still the prince, praised him when he visited Qiangrong County. It is said that Lianji and the new Emperor Lianyu are extremely emotional, and many scholars have gone to worship. It is not easy to be favored. Chuan Fitong was appointed by the first emperor when he was alive, the youngest Xiongguo in the history of the Great Zhou dynasty, and the #1 champion 8 years ago. It is said that this person has an unpredictable temperament, and it is extremely difficult to get started. There are not many diners under the house. If they can enter, wouldn't it be a big opportunity? Zhaoting, how did you get the appreciation of Chuan Fitong? If you are not keen on going to power, you go to Beijing to get fame, and fame at this time, is it to restore the glory of the Li family? It's just that you never argue with words, and don't like to show off. How can you tell the acquaintance with Chuan and suppress Si Lanfan? At this time, Xiao Si also asked in a low voice, "My son, why did you invite Song Yang to go with us?" Li Zhaoting put the painting on the stone table and unfolded the scroll. "Since Song Yang helped me, I cannot allow him to be victimized by Si Lanfan. I was walking with him, and Si Lanfan knew very well that if he tried to harm Song Yang, I would stop it. Si Lanfan moved me and offended me. It's the Sang Chuan. As for whether Song Yang can be appreciated by Sang Chuan, it depends on his good fortune." The little four was anxious. "My son, don't you just let yourself add another competitor. Since ancient times, any position has been occupied by the capable. If I can, no one can take it away. If I can't, how can I blame others?" Suhen smiled heartily, and if that was the case, he was still him. Even if I have never seen him like this, his sharp edge is thin, as if the sword is pointing at the world. Blame Feng Sahen's petty maid, son, if you have never entered into a marriage contract with her, who would dare to bully at will? Xiao Si said and said bitterly. Sahen smiled bitterly when she heard the words, her hand hurts, and her nails snapped on the pillar unexpectedly. She didn't pay any attention, only hiding behind the pillar and watching Li Zhaoting closely, waiting for him to answer. Don't say that to her in the future. Li Zhaoting's eyes sharpened, Xiao Si was startled, and immediately lowered his head, but Li Zhaoting raised his head slightly, looked at the night sky, and said lightly, she is also a poor person. Stop! Sahen felt relieved and pained. He didn't blame her, but her tone was so light, as if she was just a stubborn little neighbor girl and never left a point in his heart. The son risked his death to save her back then. Son, seriously, do you really like Feng Sahen? Xiao Si asked suddenly. Little Si, you were there back then. Yes. But at that time, no one, including you, noticed that her father was looking at us not far away. OM/A/36985/4343988.SHTML Previous chapters/A/36985/list.SHTML Book Catalog JavaScript bookmark/A/36985/4346943.html Tips for the next chapter. You can use the keyboard shortcut to turn pages. The previous chapter. The next chapter. Use the mobile phone book to expand the SMS receiving mobile version address. Expand the download link to the computer. Expand /novel/s/list_each_up.html Update today ranking free full version President Hall Traverse Pavilion Ancient Rhyme Museum Fantasy Hall Fashion Pavilion Poinsettia Museum About Us Contact Us Partners Member Registration Help Center Copyright Statement Site Map Red Sleeve All rights reserved. Do not reprint Beijing ICP Certificate 090200 without permission. Copyright 19992012